The Indianapolis Colts have fired head coach Frank Reich, this according to multiple sources, and now confirmed by the Colts on social media. Frank Reich is out as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts after 5 years. And the 3-5-1 start this year, it just seemed to be too big for the Colts to ignore. And it is what led to his firing. That and the fact that no matter what they did, they being the Colts, they were never able to replicate the success they had with Andrew Luck after he retired. Like, Reich's first year was great. They go 10-6. They make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. They go to Kansas City and play their butts off but lose. And then after that, they go 7-9. They go 11-5 the next year, and you're thinking 2020, hey, maybe we got a chance here. Maybe we got a shot with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers then retires, and then you try the Carson Wentz experiment, and then you try the Matt Ryan experiment, and nothing seemed to have worked. And that's the cloud that has loomed over Frank Reich for the past number of years, and it's the cloud that is going to loom over everyone in this organization as right now, the Colts look as close as they've ever been to rebuilding. It's weird because the Colts haven't really rebuilt ever since Peyton Manning. Like think about it, right? Because the Colts, they go from Peyton Manning in 1998. He was number 1 overall pick in 1998. And then they have a bad year, but then they come back and he becomes one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time for the next 10, 15 years. 2012 happens. Or 2011, happens. They go 2-14, get the number 1 pick, and end up drafting Andrew Luck, and they're right back in playoff contention the next year. Right back in there. So they have not had long spurts of not making the playoff like this ever. Really ever since they moved, or ever since Peyton Manning, I should say, was drafted. So I think the disappointment and the standard that Jim Irsay kind of keeps this team at, it played a part in this. And I think that the Colts are a team that are in for just, I don't know if it's going to be a long rebuild, but it's definitely going to be a hard rebuild. Because after Andrew Luck retired, they still had a good enough team to compete. They still had a good enough team where you're like, this team could make the playoffs and go on a bit of a run if they find the right guy at quarterback, if they find a guy who's just good enough. But what we learned, or what we have learned over the past number of years, is just good enough isn't good enough. Because Phillip Rivers goes there, they go 11-5, and everyone's like, oh, okay, the Colts with Phillip Rivers, this is something here. And they were something, but they couldn't get past the Bills. They couldn't get past Josh Allen. They go one and done in the playoffs. The next year, 2021, we know what happened with Carson Wentz. Do they trade for him? He gets traded the next offseason. And then they bring in Matt Ryan, the $40 million a year guy in Matt Ryan. And they're like, okay, the last 2 Band-Aids didn't really get us to where we wanted to go, but this Band-Aid will. And lo and behold, 3-5-1, Frank Reich is fired. This is not going to be the last firing, though, by the way, for the Colts. I can almost assure you, again, speculation, but I can almost assure you that Chris Ballard, the GM, will be fired because a lot of this ends up on him. A lot of this ends up on Ballard and his inability and his lack of foresight for the future. They were so concerned with going all in and finding a Band-Aid guy at quarterback that they were never able to find the guy. And that's unfortunately what this is going to be remembered as. What if? One of the biggest what ifs. What if Andrew Luck had not retired? What if the Colts, after they went 7-9 in 2019, went on a run and tried to get a young quarterback in the 2020 NFL draft, or tried to get a young quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft, of which there were many? What if? We'll never know. What we do know is the Colts are sitting at 3-5-1, and I think it's going to get a lot worse than that for them because they're just not playing good football. As far as Frank Reich goes, this is a guy who I think is going to have a market definitely as a play caller and an offensive coordinator. He comes from that Andy Reid, Doug Peterson coaching tree. He's going to get a job. And I think you're going to see Frank Reich as an NFL head coach again at some point. I think he is that good. Remember, he's not leaving the Colts like, like 4-20, right? He's a nice, but he's not leaving the Colts with like a terrible, underwhelming record. He has a winning record as a head coach. He's 40-33-1 as a head coach. He has a playoff win. This is a guy who, for the longest time, was one of the most underrated head coaches in the league, and the players respect him. He was a part of that Super Bowl winning team in Philadelphia. Don't be surprised if he ends up going back to somewhere near the Andy Reid coaching tree. Don't be surprised if he maybe goes and rejoins Doug Peterson. So there's a lot of connections for him there, but for right now, I mean, this is a move that the Colts kind of had to make. I think they're cleaning house. I think it's Jim Irsay kind of made it clear 2 weeks ago when he said we're starting Sam Ehlinger because all these Band-Aid quarterbacks that we're trying to trot out there just aren't working. So if this young guy that you drafted isn't good enough, okay, we're all done. Because I think Jim Irsay is just kind of done playing games at this point. He's given them enough time in his mind, and this is what it is. But Frank Reich let go as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts after 5 years. What do you guys think about this move? Was it right? Was it wrong? Was it justified? They just gave him a contract extension through 2026 last offseason. Doesn't matter. Let me know what you guys think, though, in the comment section below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.